Okay, we're live here. So, yeah. No, the first time I actually had gone live last week, I didn't realize there was like a 45-second delay. So I'm sitting there watching like the YouTube, and the start of the video was me staring at it and like wondering why it wasn't going. But
Yeah.
yeah, so I suppose it makes sense though that they'd have a delay in case, I don't know, something untoward happened. But
Yeah. Can you hear me
uh,
okay? I
yeah,
didn't.
I can hear you great. Yep, so
Okay.
you're fine. So, yeah, I'm trying to think of where. Yeah, no, it's teasy. I was saying, no, you mean you didn't get through all like 8 to 9 hours of the Introduction to Christianity series?
Okay. Okay. Here's something. Every time someone says Ratzinger, I think, Cardinal Joseph Ratzinger, who
Yes.
became
Yep.
the. Oh, wait, that's
Yeah.
who wrote the book that you're working through.
Yeah. We went through. Yep. So
Okay.
we did finish the series. So or Pope Benedict. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Okay.
yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. No, he. Yeah, I mean, he was a professor by training, and let's see this. The book actually was an adaptation of college lectures. So, and yeah, so no, it's very, I don't know, to use a fun, nerdy corner word, it's very Vervaekian. So, no, like he has like, I don't know, like about 50 pages of like about modes of belief, for example. So, yeah,
I,
so
yeah.
yeah, I think most people would hear that and think, ugh, but I think there's people in TLC which hear it and think like, oh, that sounds amazing. So,
Yes. Yes. I heard you talking to, I think, Sam Tiedemann about the credo modes of belief or whatever.
yes, yep, yep,
Um, Yeah,
yeah,
somehow that springboarded on because I'm not very good, and I was in my car, and so I was like, I couldn't like look at it. So somehow that led straight into Sam Tiedemann talking about like what is Unitarian, what is biblical Unitarianism, and I thought,
yeah.
wow, that's really something.
Yeah, that's kind of sort of almost like a third to a half of what his channel is about
Mhm.
biblical Unitarianism. So, but, yeah. So it is interesting. He has done some serious research on that and had quite a few academics and different
Mhm.
people on. Probably most famously, Alistair McGrath, if you know who that is, has been on
He's
his
like a
channel.
pre-flight philosopher. I
Yeah, yeah.
firmly said that he was a philosopher. That would be
Um,
much.
yeah, yeah, so I don't know too much about his work. He's at Oxford, I believe, though.
Kind of in Ephesus. You say that name, and sort of I'm thinking of somebody who's like sort of Aristotelian ethics, but I'm not super familiar with this work either.
Yeah, yep. So yeah, I don't know. My thing says I'm live for the record, but it's I don't know. When I gave you the link before, it seemed like something didn't go quite right. But
No,
so I'm
I think,
showing both the upcoming and the current live here.
huh?
Uh, but
Maybe I should get on YouTube and see what I see.
yeah, that's okay. I
Oh,
mean, as long as it's on the channel, I can go back and maybe erase one later if I need to. So yeah. So,
sure.
but yeah, it doesn't look like anyone's watching right now, but that's okay. I mean, I don't know. I guess when I had it with Mark Parker, that was the first time I had done
Mhm.
something live, and it seemed like more people had tuned in for it than
Yeah,
had in the past. So,
the way they do it with the algorithm,
yeah.
I think they favor. Um, Anytime I talk about technology, I worry that I sound like like an 80-year-old grandma.
Okay. I mean, I'm not a super online person myself. I mean, I know some of the corner people are more into programming and are on like like 50 different discords or something like that. But
Mhm.
I mean, really, I'm on Bridges of Meaning, and probably, I would say a third to a half of the time I'm online, not counting my phone when
Mhm.
I'm not at work, is probably doing corner stuff. So either on the Discord or making videos.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
So like half the time, that's interesting because that is something that I think about with people. It's like, well, how much time do you spend on time online? And most people watch, many people in this community watch YouTube for 4 or 5 hours a day, but they're doing, other tasks and stuff.
Yeah. I actually don't watch that much YouTube. A lot of times when I'm listening to things, it's I'm out with my dog or I'm like making a meal or something like that. And I
Mhm.
mean, YouTube's not the most mobile friendly platform. So, but
Yes.
yeah, so yeah, no, that's one of the things I was thinking about it when I was thinking about what to talk about is I guess
Mhm.
that's one of my questions you've probably thought about is, I mean, why would anyone be watching this?
I asked that question too. Why, especially when I'm live streaming, I'm like, okay, who wants to hear me kind of like because like you feel like you're talking to yourself, right?
Yeah. Oh, that's absolutely true. So yeah, no, I made some videos where I am talking to myself because there'd been some breaks when we were doing the book series, and I
Mhm.
wanted some content still going to the channel. So I had put out a
Mhm.
few videos where I just like picked a topic and did a little bit of research. Was talking for like 10 minutes, and yeah, that is a weird experience. I have to agree. I
Mhm.
don't.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how PVK does it for like I don't know, like 5 hours a week on average.
I don't know if this just like came to me or if this is something that I heard someone else say, but I'm treating it like, do you remember Mr. Rogers? I probably heard this from someone. He always used to say, well, I'm talking to my television neighbor. And as a kid, that freaked me out and I didn't understand it. But I'm sure
Huh.
retrospectively, he's it's a way to make sense of the weirdness of like talking to the I don't know.
Yeah, no, it probably is. And well, I guess one of the things that really stood out to me is when I did the live streams. So, from what I could tell based on the analytics, and I don't know if this seemed congruent with what you did too, it seemed like more people had watched it after. It didn't seem like there was that many people who actually were watching it while it was
Mhm.
live. And the people who did watch it had watched almost all of it too, or at least a big chunk of it. Whereas some of the other videos, I could tell people had
Mhm.
got like a link to it and they were just clicking through real quickly. And I don't know, it's fascinating to me because I was thinking like, so there's a couple different reasons why someone might watch a video online. I mean, one is there could be someone who's an expert in a topic, right? That's one
Mhm.
thing. I mean, I
Okay.
don't think that most of the TLC content would fall into that. And then, I mean, there could be someone who, like, maybe they're a celebrity, maybe they're especially charismatic. That was another one. Or that maybe the third broad category would be they could have a really niche topic. Like, for example, if you've ever had something with like your car and you think like, okay, how do I do this? So, it's simple, but
Mhm.
you just want to see someone actually do that specific thing. Or
Yeah.
like to like I had some trouble starting a chainsaw the other day, and I
Mhm.
was watching the video where they told me how to do it, for example. But yeah, those are well. I guess the other one is, I mean, the more I don't know. I guess to me, ethereal category would be community too. And
Mhm.
because I mean, it's true that there's something about the TLC videos, especially the ones where people are just having conversations, where there's somewhere between like a podcast and just like general social media, because there's a
Mhm.
performative aspect to it for sure, but it's also not. I mean, clearly what's drawing people into it isn't that there's a brilliant production behind it, or that the people have done a lot of research or in some way um, are providing information that they can't get elsewhere necessarily. But so I don't know. Do you have any pet theories or ideas about why people watch these corner videos?
Okay. That's a really fun question to think with, and I like what you're kind of like sort of your categories, your kind of maybe ideal types that you're thinking with. Very interesting. Um, Whenever this kind of question comes up, I like to start with myself. Like, why do I watch any kind of content online? And I think you're right. Like to figure out something like, and I heard Ron Howard say, I think it was Ron who was saying like, I forget where he was talking. Maybe did he do a randos with Paul recently?
So Chris Howard, I believe. Yeah.
Chris. Yeah,
Yes. Yep. Not the guy from Happy Days.
that's right. Um,
Yeah.
Chris Howard. Okay. I'm sorry. I get all the names.
Yeah,
Totally
he was. No,
wrong.
his conversation was pretty interesting. He was saying he was doing ham radio before
Yes.
he was involved with the, yeah, TLC.
And he talks on Chad's channel a lot too, doesn't he?
Yeah.
But he was saying that one of the videos on his channel that got the most sort of likes and whatever was just like what you were talking about a minute ago. Like, well, he had this video about some kind of Ford car, truck, speedometer, or something or other. I don't remember, but just like what you were saying, just like this mechanical process. How do I do this? Well, I'm going to turn on a video.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I had an encounter with one of those kinds of videos when I was trying to, I got a new vehicle and I was needing to change the time for daylight savings. And like I'm going through all the settings and things, and I turned on the video and it's like literally, it said hit the giant H button, and there was a button on the dash that said H, and like all you had to do was hit that button. But when you were sitting in the driver's seat, the steering wheel covered it.
Okay.
Like, yeah, so I don't know. I was looking for like maybe 3 minutes trying to figure it out and like messing around with the other settings. But yeah, so sometimes just having a visual thing, maybe it's very simple, but if you don't know how to do it exactly, if you haven't done it before. But
yeah. Okay. But this is really interesting for me. Like when you're producing content, like what? Because there must be like you have invested a lot of time with the Ratzinger book, and then also like things like having Mark on your channel, doing some live streams and stuff like that. Like you've invested. Like, what are you hoping that people are getting out of it as they might encounter it, and whatever?
Yeah. Well, I guess I was thinking about it because there definitely were some streams I had, and I think I had mentioned this in the comments, where literally no one else had watched them. Like it might say it has like 4 counts or something like that, but I clicked on it like once or twice just to basically see that the video had uploaded. I could see there's a total of like 6 minutes watched or something like that. And I guess my thought was, as long as, well, I guess I was having these kinds of conversations before they were on my channel. So that's the first thing. So it's not like I had just been like, okay, I'm going to start a channel out of the blue and see if anyone like tunes into it or something like that. And I think that's definitely I think almost everyone who has a channel in this little corner has been on the Discord, or at least been on different live streams before they started a channel. So that's probably a commonality. But yeah, I figured I was having the conversations before, and it gave a little more organized, more structured format for it. And I mean, also, I enjoyed the people I was having the conversations with. And as for the goals, I mean, honestly, if basically anyone, when we were doing the book series, read the book or picked it up or was tuned on to it that hadn't been before, I would consider that a success. So, I mean, my bar for success was actually very low in that sense. So, I mean, because, well, I mean, we're all drowning in content, right? Like, I mean, who knows how many literally probably, I don't know, centuries of content is probably on YouTube, right? So, I mean, the idea that I'm not conceited enough to think that I'm going to be breaking through and there's going to be millions, let alone like thousands of people watching my videos or anything like that. And that's not the purpose at all.
Yeah, so it's not about the number of people. I think that's. I mean, I'm really interested in that. I'm sorry. I know I'm not supposed to interview you, but let me.
Well, you're fine. Ask the questions. Yeah.
Let me tug at the thread a little bit, and I want to know. I'm thinking about like it's not about content, but you were having these conversations before, so I guess I kind of want to think about like what shape did those like when you were talking about conversations before you started your channel, or was it before something else? What's the
Yeah, before I started the channel, on the Discord server, I mean, Mark and I had a number of conversations, and when
Mark?
Mark F. Ferrero, so I don't know,
Third
he
Mark.
does have, sorry?
There's a third Mark.
I know, we can't come up with original names here, apparently. Mark, Paul,
Okay.
gosh, even Sam.
Mark F. Mark F. I got it.
Yeah, so yeah, he does have a Substack. I'll give you a link to. Besides that, I don't think you would find him anywhere other than on my channel.
Okay.
In terms of video content, as far as I know, he doesn't have a YouTube channel and he doesn't show up on live streams. But he's one of the moderators on Bridges of Meaning.
Okay, one of these like secret shadow moderators. All right.
Yeah, so I mean, he's around. I mean, if you go out there, so I mean, it might be a little bit hard to pin him down for a conversation because he does have two small boys. So I believe between 2 and 3, and one that's 5 months old. So.
Okay, but where does he come into the? I want to. I'm sorry. I'm going to redirect you back to you.
No, that's fair. I mean, so we had been talking about, broadly issues of theology and philosophy, even politics, which actually Schwarzenegger's work actually hits out a little more than you would necessarily think inherently. And yeah, I mean, I knew he was Catholic and that he was into those I think almost anyone in the corner probably would have been into the book at least a little bit, or at least more inclined to be than an average person. And there was one other guy, actually, Andrew, who I had asked to be part of the discussion initially, but he didn't want to. Well, I guess he actually has a pretty big YouTube following where he does, I think, like Twitch kind of streaming, and I don't know, he didn't necessarily want his brand associated with other things. So Mark had recommended Emma be a part of the group. And Emma, yeah, it's funny because if you watch the videos, I feel like Mark and I probably do more talking, but Emma is actually the one who probably has more technical qualifications to be speaking on the topic because she's she's a Hillsdale undergrad, so she had a pretty intensive liberal arts training, but then she also is in a PhD program in classics at University of Illinois.
Okay. Those classicists, my goodness, they just they got big brains.
Yeah.
Wait, so were you were having these conversations before you started your YouTube channel with people like Emma?
Well, Mark and yeah, I mean, I would. Well, I guess what I would do is, I would typically go on like a Saturday night, and I'd say maybe have some like broad prompt, like I don't know, depending on what PVK had been talking about that week or something, what I had been reading, and then say like, oh, I'm going to be on at this time, and maybe. I mean, you honestly don't want too many people. I think I had been on one day when. Well, CW showed up, and then Ash had showed up after he had a randos conversation. And I think there was like 30 people, and it kind of crashed the system a little bit. And well, I say crash, it didn't go offline or anything, but it just had been buffering very slowly. So you probably want also it's hard to manage a conversation with that many people. And I mean, you go online with random people, probably one of them out of 20 or 30 is likely going to be a bit of a troll too. That's always an issue. So, yeah. So I'd go on and have the conversations, and yeah, we'd talk about, I mean, whatever we'd been listening to and thinking about in the week. I guess it's very sort of, I don't know, even though it wasn't following any format, I mean, it's very similar, I guess, and probably in terms of conversations that people have in like Van Dunk's estuaries, for example. So,
okay.
And yeah, from there, I had it in my mind. I mean, I read quite a few. Actually, it's kind of funny because, yeah, I'm not Catholic, but Mark and Emma are, and I was the one who, well, besides being the one who spearheaded the group, I was also the one who had read quite a bit more Ratzinger before the
Mm.
group too. So that's kind of interesting. I think I'd randomly picked up one of his, well, while he was Pope, the books that he had written a series on the Gospels, and I had picked them up randomly, like at a library or something like that, and
Mhm.
I read through that, and then a number of his various academic writings and things over the years. Yeah.
Oh, it was just powerful. You just said while he was Pope, and it was like, oh yeah, that happened.
Yep.
Um, Whoa, that was wild. But can I ask? I just want to pull just another question. Just while I got you here, um, you've got me here actually. So, but the question is, so this community building, you started the YouTube having these types of conversations, which I guess it's not necessarily community building. I didn't mean to put words in your mouth there, but you started actually on Discord. Were you doing like in your maybe in your church or maybe just like at the Y or whatever? Did you feel like you had conversations kind of on par with this, or doing similar, talking about people like Ratzinger or?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I'm trying to think. So, I definitely have been even though I'm not involved with any right now, I've been a part of church Bible studies, or I mean, small
Mhm,
group is kind of the Protestant lingo that people like to use, where people
mhm,
do discuss these kinds of things. That I mean, I will say that I don't know, people who listen to Paul Vanderklay, in my experience, for I don't know, more than a couple hours a week are kind of a different breed, so to speak. I mean, it could have bad ways. I mean,
okay.
but no, I mean it's true. I mean, you're you're involved with this. I mean, you've had enough conversations with people. I'm sure you notice some of the commonalities, and it's kind of funny because I've asked people like, what is the commonality or sort of the glue that holds together TLC, because it's definitely not theology, right? It's definitely not. I mean, even though it's broadly Christian, I mean, there's probably about as wide of a range of different types of Christians as you could think of, and then there's also a number of people who are Jewish or non-religious involved with it too. So it's definitely not like a like a clerical movement or anything. Well, clerical is not the right term there, but exactly. But a confessional movement, you could say. It's something different than that. But I mean, I don't know. I guess I definitely have felt more connection with people I've met who were involved with stuff than most people. And some of it maybe is just kind of, I guess, if you're sourcing for common media, maybe there's demographics kind of thing. I mean, it's probably disproportionately men, but also people who are in their maybe in their 30s or early 40s. So I mean, I guess there's commonality in that, like in terms of life experience and that kind of stuff too. But yeah, I don't know. It's a good question. I mean, what really is drawing people together? But I guess are you involved with any other like online communities? Like, I mean, I assume you have stuff like with, um, oh, like um, whatever. I'm trying to think of the term for it. That like I'm sure you have like chat communities with like your PhD and things like that. Uh,
Oh, like different like sort of discords and stuff.
yeah,
Yeah, there's one or
Slack channel.
two.
That's the term I was looking for. I've never been on a Slack channel. I assume it's the same as Discord or very similar.
When I worked in market research, there was more kind of Slack stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Some of my colleagues I've been on Discords with, and then a lot of my partners friend groups. They're all, they sort of have disbanded, some of them, but they're together on the Discord, and so there's all sorts of Discord sort of life that goes on. In that, and two or three of those friend groups that I've kind of joined. So I guess that's kind of weird because I don't feel directly sort of, oh, this is my Discord. Like Discord is like a pretty new platform for me. Does
Yeah.
this make sense? Is that?
Yeah. How have you found it? Does it make sense to you, or was it a little bit overwhelming when you got on?
Yeah, I can like, how have I found the Discord platform? It's a lot because, okay, so like to read some of these threads and like the threading, and I've talked to a lot of people. I know that people who are not gamers agree with me. It makes no sense. It's totally overwhelming. You can't follow a conversation. Do you have thoughts on this? Like,
Well, yeah. I mean, I guess like I'll be honest. Everyone I think who has ever spent more than like, I don't know, half hour online on any kind of message board has had the experience where they've typed something and thought like, oh, should I have typed that, or should I have brought up this topic or something? And I guess one of the things about the Discord that's good and bad is that whatever you put into it, it seems to kind of vanish in 24 hours.
yeah, just because of all the new text that,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's different from other forms of social media in that way.
Yeah, I guess I was thinking for whatever reason, maybe it's just the formatting of it. It is harder to follow than like the early 2000s, like message board kind of social media that I was on was.
I do like the accessibility, though. I like that, there's clearly defined groups, and then also sort of clearly defined, like, you can contact other people in that way. I think that's very interesting, and it's a good way to get in contact with people, I guess, without having to worry about like your phone number and stuff, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, as far as having a conversation, I mean, it's a fun distraction. But as far as having conversations go, I do think the voice chat is much better for a conversation generally than the text threads. So, but I mean, the text threads are nice if there's something specific you want to share, like you want to ask people about. Like, I don't know, if I'm on the weekend and I've listened to most of the podcasts I have in my queue, I'll take a look at like the external links or something like that on the Discord. I almost always see something interesting, for example.
Yeah. I do worry, like in the voice chat, and I can see how that's a big difference, like in use, like just like looking for particular links. That's a totally different use case than trying to like argue about the nature of your theology with someone. But the voice chat I have found, and this might be a gendered thing. I suspect this is a gendered thing. I have found it very difficult to, and maybe it's not specifically gendered. Maybe there's something else going on, but difficult to follow the rhythm of the conversation. Difficult to know, like, okay, now it's my turn. Just because there's no cues, there's no eye contact, there's no. You have to. You kind of feel like you're stepping on someone's toes. I don't know.
Yes, it is true. I mean, I do think you have to be assertive in a way. And I mean, I guess one of the things is especially if you're asking people to like come in and be there, I know I sometimes feel an obligation maybe to try and steer the conversation a little bit if someone's going off on a tangent about some kind of random political thing or something that probably isn't necessarily interesting to everyone there, and they've been going for a while on it. So, and yeah, it is true, the whole thing of etiquette, yeah, it is. It is definitely more tricky, and yeah, I mean that's one of the things. I mean, I guess the estuary. I mean, really I guess the social technology of it is really just a
Mhm.
sharing group technique. Is all it really is. It's not nothing too sophisticated, but it does give everyone a chance to at least speak a little bit, which is a positive thing. So.
Mm.
Do you go on Von Donk's like virtual estuaries?
I have been to a couple of Van Dog's estuaries. What a fun guy.
Yeah.
John Van Dog. Just what a full of. Have I seen you there? Have you been on one that I've been on?
No, I haven't been. The ones on Thursday, I think, are kind of in the middle of the day, so I mean that's hard for
Mhm.
me to make. And then the ones on, well, I was going to the ones on Wednesday nights semi regularly, but had started to go to a Bible study for a while, so I'd dropped off on that. So.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. No, I just those are so cool, and I would definitely go back. It's just there's I've just been doing so many conversations and so many interviews and watching other people, and I just I haven't made it back, but probably since going to Northwest Estuary. But I was interested in what you were saying a minute ago about the estuary protocol kind of being a technology to kind of organize conversation. Is that something you saw at play in Discord, or something that Discord sort of
Um,
antithesis?
yeah, I'd say that Discord is it's a little more chaotic, and it is a little bit more the opposite of that in a way. So I mean, I think most people are welcoming, and I
Yeah,
mean, if you have a question or you want to get something in, most of the people aren't going to cut you off. But I mean, it has happened sometimes, and I don't know. I think like one of the first times I was on Discord, I don't know if it was actually a person or if they were just like running like a video, but there was someone who was a gentleman who was dancing without a shirt on, and like there was multicolored backgrounds behind him. Uh, and I assume that it was probably just some troll running a video replay or something like that. I assume it wasn't actually. So, thankfully, they didn't have volume on, so it didn't really interfere with the conversation. But I mean, you do see random stuff like that though from time to time.
sure. Yeah, yeah. Okay, so that is something I've sort of been thinking about. Like, okay, we got trolls and like other obstacles in these online platforms, and that is something that that could go either way. It could kind of bring people together. It could be something that really is disruptive, keeps you from forming, having good conversations or whatever.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I do think sometimes there is something about having maybe a, like one person who's not entirely on board with whatever the group's doing that mixes it up a little bit. I mean, like if you watch PVK's streams, I mean, it's often there's a guy, Timothy Grogan or T Grog, who
Mhm.
comes in and he whatever the topic is, he's got like five talking points, and he's just kind of always going on with them. And I don't know, it's just that you see the way people interact with him, and I
Mhm.
mean, obviously I don't know, I don't, you don't want to be too hard, but I get the impression that he's given that he. Well, I'm trying to think. What's the oh gosh, what's the saying? I mean, like an ideologue is someone who only has two ideas, or and that's kind of what it's like. Like whatever the topic is, he has like three things he's always going to be posting about. So I think at
Mhm.
some point, I mean, people just maybe start kind of, I don't know, teasing him a little bit or engaging in kind of a more, I don't know, playful kind of way with him. And I think that does help mix up the conversation a little bit.
Hmm. Have you seen on the Friday morning nameless? There's this really great conversation between T. Grog and Neil Dedalus. that's really worth a watch. Both really kind of at their best in that conversation.
I'll definitely take a note to watch it. Yeah, and I know Paul liked that conversation too. I haven't watched as much of the Friday Morning Nameless stuff as I'd like to, honestly.
I can't believe you haven't seen every single thing in this little corner of the internet.
I have not. So yep,
that was a joke from someone who's drowning in water.
Yeah, no. I mean, I've never even been on like Mark Lefebvre or Grim Grizz's channel.
Okay, you
not even subscribed.
Stop everything right now and go see Griswold Grim.
Okay. Yeah, Grizz baby. I don't know. Mark, I don't know.
What about Mark? What's that?
He's a very precise and very clear thinker, and I have had, yeah.
But tell me more.
His wisdom is so precise. I hear everything I want to hear from him on Father Eric's stream.
Oh, okay. You already watch Father Eric.
Yeah, I do watch Father Eric's stream sometimes. So, yeah.
Okay, well.
Yeah, it was a regular on that one. She's hosted it at least once too, though. But she's expecting pretty soon, so she hasn't been around too much with it.
Who are we talking about?
Emma, one of
Emma.
Yeah.
Okay, question for you. 2 questions. Okay, let me ask this question first. Tell me more about Mark L. Because
I don't know that much about Mark L, honestly. I see about Father Eric streams.
Okay, tell me about Father Eric, because Father Eric is somebody who's like pretty well respected. But also I never see him on PVK streams, and I just kind of don't really know the flavor because I haven't really seen him that much.
Yeah, I mean, he does chat a bit on them. I think that Father Eric is, I think he maybe similar to PVK. He self-consciously thinks of his channel as being a ministry, and I think he's maybe because of that a little bit hesitant. He doesn't necessarily want to be on for like 5 hours a week talking about whatever, because he thinks of himself as being in a ministerial capacity when he's on line. So I mean, that obviously you're going to want to be limited to some extent with what you're going to be talking about and how you present yourself and those kinds of things. So I mean, he's in the chat fairly commonly on PVK streams, but not on camera that often. But well, until recently Sunday nights, but now on Monday nights he has his own streams and he's on.
Okay, well that's interesting that he's thinking of his as like a sort of a ministerial situation. What are you thinking of yours as? Are you trying to reach people? What's your deal?
Well, I mean, it's definitely not ministerial in the sense that I'm not a representative of any specific denomination or church or anything like that. Let's see. I mean, I guess more broadly, I mean, I don't know. I suppose I am a Christian, but I mean, it's I guess the cliche that people say of Francis, right? I mean, I'll always be witnessing if you have to use your words, right? So, I mean, so hopefully, I mean, people would, I don't know, I guess, see the content and think like, oh, there's something interesting here, or maybe I should look into, or maybe think about these kinds of topics. But I mean, I wouldn't think of what I do as being in any way polemical or even apologetics or anything like that.
Is it just fun?
Yeah, I enjoy it. I mean, I don't know if it's everyone's idea of fun, but
so is it like a purely recreational thing?
Yeah, I'd say it's a hobby. I'd say that.
Okay.
I mean, I'm definitely not trying to make money off of it. I mean, no, it's funny. Luke, he I don't know. A few times he's been like, I see about the stream is like, oh, I don't want to sell out, and it's like, honestly, I, I I'm involved in an accounting firm. I have to deal with like government compliance and people who have debt, and like sometimes like, well, just kind of like real life situations. And part of me is like, oh, I don't know. I think I'd happily sell out if given the opportunity. But of course, who knows? I'm sure people on YouTube all the time think that they're like, oh man, I wish I just had a regular job. But yeah, too. I mean,
Wait, so do
uh,
you work from home, or are you?
no, I work in an office. Yeah. So actually, I could do what I do remotely, but I mean, we're a small office and we don't have all the security features set up for um, doing, because like we deal with social security numbers and bank accounts and that kind of stuff. So, I mean, we've generally kept our stuff in the office.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Um, um, yeah.
I
So.
wanted to ask you if it's okay.
You can ask me whatever you want.
Okay. Well, so you probably addressed this with PVK, but so I know about your Pentecostal background. Is that right?
Yeah, so that's something I talked maybe very little about with BVK, but it was something I'd spoken more with Sam Tiedemann about if you had watched both those conversations.
I watched some of those, but the question that remains for me, and I'm sorry if you address this,
Okay.
is what is someone like you with this Pentecostal background, and it kind of sounds like you're still a Protestant, hanging out with all these Catholics, Father Eric, Cardinal Ratzinger?
I'm definitely not hanging out with Cardinal Ratzinger. But, yeah, so I yeah, I mean, so like, I mean, my wife, even though she hasn't gone to mass in some time, I mean, she's Catholic, for example, but I don't think I could get her to like read the first chapter, like the introduction to. Or like the intro part of Introduction to Christianity, because I mean, I think I don't know. I think the interest in sort of like technical, maybe philosophical theology and that kind of thing. I don't know if it's something that necessarily is a. I don't think it's something that necessarily follows like denominational lines per se. And I don't know. I think there's a lot of topics and things that's talked about that I think most people in TLC would probably find pretty interesting and pretty compelling. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess we might have another reading group coming up. We might be doing that. Well, I haven't. I'm still getting it together. We might be doing Bonhoeffer though, and I don't know. I mean, I'm not Lutheran. I mean, I don't think most people who read Bonhoeffer are probably Lutheran, but
Okay. So I guess I'm hearing you say that actually anybody would read these people, and I shouldn't be reading it. Here's what I'm tempted to do. Oh, he's one of these guys finding, answering the meaning crisis, finding God not in the traditions they were raised in, but in these more Eastern traditions.
Well, I mean, I'll say this. I mean, so the churches I grew up in, I mean, there was a strong biblicist strain, so there was a theology and that, but I mean, there wasn't necessarily a strict systematic theology or like I mean, like you would go to different Pentecostal churches in the same denomination, and what you would necessarily hear preached or spoken about would actually vary really widely. So, I mean, in that sense, I mean, there are people who, I don't know. I guess it is different than like maybe Catholic or Reformed theology, where you go in on a Sunday morning if you've ever been to, well, not so really a Catholic church, even though they have a bookstore, but you go to a Presbyterian church and they literally have a table stacked with different books. So, and they're like, okay, this is the things that you should be reading if you, I don't know, consider yourself a good Protestant or a good Presbyterian kind of thing.
Mm.
Which I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but I mean, I guess I always maybe have read a fairly wide variety of different Christians and even Jewish and Muslim and I don't know, religious, maybe you could say like perennialist kind of thinkers.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me ask you: is this okay if I have some questions, and I don't want to offend you by asking? These are like a little bit personal. Your experience with religion. I like to ask Pentecostals about being, and I know, actually I don't know. Do you identify as Pentecostal?
I mean, I haven't been. I mean, so being a Pentecostal, I mean, it's not like being a Catholic, where it means that you align your that you like agree with a specific creed, or you've been catechized in some way. That said, I mean, I haven't been active in Pentecostal churches in, gosh, probably about 15 years now.
15 years, yeah.
Yeah.
Was that a no, or is that you still feel like you're Pentecostal even though you haven't?
Well, I mean, like I know you were, for example, raised with like some Baptist traditions. I mean, there's probably a way in which, I mean, whatever your theology or whatever your theology is or isn't, you probably in some ways still think of yourself as Baptist. And I know that, like, or at least you don't think of yourself in any way.
Not as a Baptist, certainly.
Okay.
No.
All right.
Sorry.
I mean, I know people who are raised Catholic definitely think of themselves as Catholic, even if they oftentimes, even if they haven't been to church in like 20 years or something like that.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, actually, one of the things that I kind of got into a little bit with Sam Tiedemann was the denomination that I'd grown up in was a oneness denomination. And if you're curious about what that means, you can watch the video. I'm not going to get into all of that right now. I tried to lay it out in a little bit more thorough and kind of technical way in the video.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I don't consider myself to be a oneness Christian anymore, though I also would say that I have a lot of respect for, and I definitely would never say that like the Christians I was raised with and the pastors I had when I was growing up were like heretics or anything like that. Which, I mean, I know that may not, from an outsider's perspective, you may think like, oh, that sounds a little weird, but I mean, there are, I think, a fair number of Christians who would say that, though.
But they would have turned so much to view other people as heretics.
Yeah. No, I think there are a fair number of theologians that would describe oneness Pentecostals as at least having a heretical Christology.
Sure. Yeah. And I was hearing Sam talk and sort of hearing, I wish I would have watched more of you talk with Sam, but hearing him kind of sort of lay out his oneness thing. His oneness thing. That's
Unitarian.
Yeah. But I was wondering from you, like, just like sort of the things I hear about Pentecostals and being like filled with the Spirit, and I wondered, is that like, is sort of the Spirit tradition being slain in the Spirit, speaking in tongues? Is that an important part of your worship now, or in the past at all?
Yeah, so I guess I would say that it's something where, I mean, if I am at a service, I probably am someone who's more likely to, I don't know, raise my hands or be expressive in the way I worship. And Yeah, I do think. Well, yeah, I guess I'll out myself as a tongue talker. I mean, yeah, no, I think
I didn't mean
speaking.
you had to out yourself. I wasn't thinking about it like that.
Well, I don't know. I mean, there's people. Well, I don't know. Actually, it's kind of funny. David Brooks actually is a well, he came to Christ in a Pentecostal church, but I mean, like in terms of people who are like in academia or I don't know, uh, like elite journalism or things like that, I think that would be forward about being yeah, being a charismatic. I think it's a pretty small circle in general. So, but,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah, no, I mean, I guess it's funny because I think from people who view it from the outside, they think of the idea of speaking in tongues and they think of it as, well, an ecstatic experience is the
Mhm.
term that you hear a lot of the time. But really, a lot of what it is it's actually almost kind of a meditation technique because I mean it's not. I think that I don't know. I think sometimes Pentecostals are afraid to um, talk about it in practical terms, but it's not um, either or. I mean, it can be both and I mean, in some ways, it's not entirely different than like a mantra where I mean, it focuses your mind. Well, because what you're doing is you're speaking, but you're using the vocalization is not language, so you're disassociating um, your cognitive processing with your logical centers of your brain. So, I mean, and it's yeah, no, and I mean, you can have. I mean, I know I have, and I mean, I think other people would say the same thing. I know I've had very intense spiritual experiences when yeah, I've been speaking in tongues, and I can at the same time concentrate very intensely on like scripture or a piece of music or something like that. And yeah, it's yeah, no, it's something I recommend. I don't know.
Mm.
Um, yeah, so I mean, if you're a believer, I'm not necessarily. Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder, is there, and you don't have to talk about this if you don't want to, because I know like it's sort of some people want to talk about it and sometimes some people don't. But is there a moment that you're thinking of in particular that was transformative for you? Um, speaking in tongues or having those spiritual moments.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I guess I mean I was raised in Pentecostal churches, and I had I mean so I was quite young. I mean when I had been in um, when I first remember that kind of thing. So in that sense, like I mean, you think of like when you're like 5 or 6 or 7 years old, and I mean you have vague memories of what happened, but I, at least I know I don't necessarily piece together too many specific um, instances at all. Generally, I mean, like I mean, there's some things I remember, but at the same time, like the I don't know. I think back like 30 years ago, and the narrative's kind of foggy in my head, and the way it what isn't compared to things that happened like when I was in my 20s or early 30s.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I didn't know whether you were sort of talking about like there's an ineffable quality to the experiences, and that makes it difficult for you to remember, or whether it's just too much time has passed and you don't feel like you really sort of remember the moment to moment. You just remember sort of the experience.
yeah. Well, I mean, I think a lot of well, like I mean, David Brooks. I mean, like for example, he talks about going to a church and hearing. I mean, what's called tongues and interpretation. Um, and that's something that if you saw that for the first time as an adult would definitely stick very strongly in your mind. But it's something whereas I mean, seeing it as a kid, I mean, whatever you're around when you're a kid, I mean, it's just kind of what's happening. And I mean, as you get older, you have more of a realization like, oh, this is different than what happens in other churches or things like that. But you don't necessarily piece it all together as a child, or at least I know I didn't. I don't think most people do.
Yeah, no, it's really funny because in my research, I have been on not funny. Funny is the wrong word. I'm sorry. I have had to check my phone for a second. I'm sorry.
Nope, you're fine.
I've been in these churches before where people have been really, like you say, this sort of, I don't want to say quiet, but meditative kind of rhythm kind of building up with music and the lights being put down and things like that, and people really just holding up their hands and sort of just speaking in tongues, just meditating on scripture, just really sort of feeling that as adults, and so it's interesting to think about, like, this is just interesting. This doesn't have a sociological purpose. Just thinking about, well, that was really cool that you had that experience as a child, and just kind of wondering, well, is that something that adults can do? Is that something adults do too, or is it just like children? Just like, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, well, I guess I will say part of the reason maybe I moved on from that a little bit is I do think there was, and I don't think this is necessarily true among all Pentecostals, but I think there was a time where, I mean, it was almost like, oh gosh, I'm really trying to, I don't know. If there's people I know who are Pentecostals watch this, they might not like this, but it's almost like no, you're fine, but it's almost like the Ashley Land thing, where she talks about people in with the psychedelic community where they're like, oh, they don't get it, they haven't had this experience where if I mean you aren't regularly and you don't have a dramatic experience, then you're in some ways not fully on board with what God is doing. And I mean, I guess to use maybe sort of reformed lingo, I mean, it's the common grace versus the salvific or the specific grace. And I mean, yeah, God moves in, I mean, God does move in dramatic ways. I definitely believe that, but God also moves in sort of simple and what may seem not particularly at the time profound kind of ways. I mean, things like, well, I mean, like the Creed or the doxology, or songs like, I don't know, Amazing Grace, for example, too. So, and yeah, I don't know. I guess I wasn't necessarily, when I became adult, I started thinking through more of these things in my mind. I wasn't necessarily, I guess, a fan of maybe some of the Pentecostal chauvinism that I felt like people. I mean, I love using the term. I could use that. So. But,
you mean that particularly in the gendered sense, like?
No. In the sense that if you like, if you haven't had an experience, or if you're not speaking tongues, or that you're not getting it entirely. Yeah, in that sense. Yeah. Hopefully, I was being somewhat articulate.
I got that. I'm sorry, my brain this time of day, I guess.
No, you're fine.
I don't know, man.
Yeah. So but my brain starts to turn down about like 9:30 too. But it's funny because I mean, if I stay up till like 11, I feel like sometimes I'm more awake. But like this time of day, my mind just starts to, like, it's like starts signaling like, oh, you need to start heading to bed sometimes. But
nice.
Yeah. So I mean, were there other things? You had mentioned Paul Kingsnorth. I that was one of the things I remember in the emails that you came across. So I assume you had watched his First Things lecture, or?
I did. Well, I heard Paul talk about it. I heard PBK talk about it, and PBK was like so just wild in his description. Like, was he talking about like crack and like he like described, was it Paul Kingsnorth that he was describing as like a crack pipe and some kind of weird gross language. I was like, well, I guess I have to watch the Paul Kingsnorth lecture, and I was really I don't know what I was expecting, but I found myself just really impressed. Did you watch any of this content? Am I just
So I had seen I know who Paul Kingsnorth is generally, and I did watch the lecture, and I think a lot of points he had gone over in the lecture he had covered in quite a few other places, but I guess how much do you know in general about First Things?
This was my first exposure. I really I read the Wikipedia entry and I've already forgotten half of it, but educate me.
Okay, so First Things is a Catholic kind of political general commentary. It's like sort of maybe it's a little more wonky than that, but maybe kind of like the Catholic equivalent of like Christianity Today, kind of. So, and during the 90s and 80s, it had gone pretty hardcore, you might want to say, neocon. So if Michael or Robert Novak, if those are people you have ever heard of, there were people who wrote for First Things. So they're very much into like Reaganite kind of economic philosophy and that kind of thing. And then over the years, though, they've transitioned to be more integralists. Like Patrick Deneen is someone who's, I'm sure, has written for them more recently. And so to have this guy who he's sort of like, well, he's coming at it kind of, so he's, first of all, he's not Catholic, right? And then he's not American, and he's a Christian convert, and he's not, I don't want to say he's a crazy lefty, but he's way more left than almost all of the First Things writers. So to have him like behind the First Things banner definitely is kind of a provocation in of itself. So yeah, so there's a big, like what he said was, I mean, he said some interesting things for sure, but I mean, the fact that he was at the First Things conference in of itself was pretty interesting. And
I think that as well. I mean,
yeah,
in its first remarks.
Yeah.
So yeah, okay, that really helps to place that.
Yeah.
I guess I'm gonna get in trouble for saying I liked it, because that means.
Well, no, I mean, I think he's definitely part of a sort of more left-wing kind of socialist European Christian tradition. I mean, so he's definitely in that vein, and I don't think there's anything that he said that was, from my perspective, or I think from the perspective of the people there, that wasn't orthodox. It just was not exactly the stereotypical First Things talking points, so to speak.
Okay, well, I saw his thesis as being really antithetical to a lot. Like, I mean, okay, so I understood his thesis to be, we got to build this. Oh, it's not about Christian civilization, because Christianity is, in his word, in his sort of thinking, his image of, and I know we got to wrap this up soon. So, but his image of Christ, I guess, was very different from this idea of civilization, because civilization, just the way that he got into it at the end, I was like, whoa, he's done some St. Basil the Great kind of stuff. But you can't have that civilization. And so he was critiquing this, I guess, we might want to call it meta-modern, I don't know. But did he bring in, or maybe, I'm sure it was PBK bringing in Jordan Peterson and saying, okay, people like this want to create this Christian civilization, but actually, whoa, can you really practice and perform Christianity if your focus is Christian civilization? And there's a whole lot more.
Oh, yeah. No, Kingsnorth did mention Jordan Peterson, and I think Jordan Peterson was the only person that he mentioned specifically I name in the lecture as being an example of this sort of Christian kind of, I don't know, like Christian informed philosophy kind of idea, the idea that, I
Mhm.
don't know, Christianity is useful, but not necessarily true, or at least not true in like the sense that the creeds and historical Christianity would claim.
Well, that kind
So
of hits on Vervaeke too, the religion without a religion, or the philosophical Silk Road, or whatever.
yeah.
Do you feel like you see the same critique that could be made there, or?
Oh yeah. So yeah, one of the more interesting. It's actually not a TLC thing at all, and I've tried to get people to read it. But one of the more interesting critiques of, I guess you could say, the Jordan Peterson view of Christianity is Kevin D. Williamson. Maybe I'll send you
Yeah,
um,
can do that.
the his piece about that. He generally actually writes more about general political things, but what he said in the piece was that yes, I mean, but so I mean, there's this term in Catholic theology that, I mean, the blood of the martyrs is the seed of the church, right? And the idea
Mhm.
that people who are passionate enough to die for something, that their witness is sort of what creates the faith.
Mhm.
And I mean, there is a question. Does Jordan Peterson, does he have a religion that he would die for? I mean, and I don't know. I mean, I'm honestly a little more lukewarm on Jordan Peterson than probably a lot of people in TLC.
Mhm.
But I, I mean, it is I mean, it is an open question that if what he's proposing is exactly the same as historical Christianity. But I guess when I talk to people in the corner about it, what they've always said, I think it's probably more right than um, not, is that, well, I mean, if you're a Christian, I mean, maybe Christian civilization, I mean, maybe about full blown Christianity, but you'll take Christian civilization above secular society, or maybe are more generic kind of, if you will, sort of like a kind of, I do think it's a kind of spirituality, the kind of spirituality you see in like Disney movies or Hollywood, for example. So, and I think that's probably more or less correct from my standpoint. So, yeah.
Okay. Okay. So you kind of see things as like just this Christian civilization thing. It's like that would be better than a secular civilization. Is that the vibe I got?
Well, I think that uh, I guess ideally you'd like to see Christian civilization in conversation with, I mean, a broader, more secular society. And I mean, I don't think you see a lot of ideas of Christian ethics and philosophy in, well, in, for example, Hollywood movies, right? I mean, it's more generic kind of, oh gosh, I'm trying to think of the Charles Taylor term for it, but I can't. Um, but the idea of like the secret sacred self, or uh, yeah, yeah.
I'm gonna have to rehearse my.
Self actualization. So yeah, so I mean, I don't know if, well, I don't know. You might actually enjoy Charles Taylor. I don't know if
Charles
reading.
Taylor on my shelf, ready to go. I just need to really sit with Charles.
Okay, yeah, I'd probably, yeah, for most people, I'd probably recommend sitting, looking up Tim Keller's talks about Charles Taylor.
Huh.
Probably
Okay.
that
Well,
might be a little
people
more
say keep
accessible.
trying to get me to read Tim Keller, so
Yep. Yeah.
not personally, just sort of through everything he says, I feel like I have to read it.
Yeah, I don't know about his
What
books as
happened?
much, but
Didn't he just die? Who am I thinking of? I'm sorry, that's a terrible way to begin a sentence. Tim Keller has talked
no.
to Charles
Yeah,
Taylor.
yeah, he did pass away fairly recently, and
Okay.
he was relatively young too. I think he wasn't quite 80 yet. No. But
That is not young. That is the average lifespan for an American
well,
male.
no, he had like a cancer, I believe.
Sure, sure.
Yeah.
Were there other things that I
Yeah.
made a note that I
Well, I mean, so you asked me, I guess, questions about myself. I mean, what turned you on to this to this little corner and to becoming a YouTube streamer? I mean, because I mean, you seem more outside of the norm for people around here than myself. I don't know. Maybe not. I don't know. So, yeah.
well,
I'll sound like Federici here, the representative of like the liberal academia elite. Which, of course, you probably have like the most conservative, like large university, right? Notre Dame, I feel like.
I feel that we have recently hosted a third of the Supreme Court, and you can guess which third. Um, but that was the thing I said. I was so interested to come into this space because Neil, my real life friend, introduced me in this coffee shop that I was doing. I was, just really just hanging out in this coffee shop. And occasionally I would use the coffee shop to have a conversation with someone for my research. And Neil kind of saw me having all of these conversations again and again and again with people. And he was like, I know this internet space where people talk like you talk. You should go hang out with them. And it took me quite some time to sort of understand what was happening, like in terms of YouTube and to actually follow through and watch content. But eventually I did, and I thought, wow, this could be a really interesting, really, there's something special going on here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously, I mean, this is something you're doing professionally, but beyond that, I mean, if you were to try and explain to someone who maybe isn't involved with YouTube or in Discord, I mean, what you're doing with all of this stuff, I mean, what would you tell them? And maybe like, what is the maybe the summary that you would give, like if you're giving a presentation, I guess, for like a general audience?
Oh, sure. Okay. Wow, this is tricky because most of my presentation language is kind of coded for sociologists. So forgive me. We'll start with the sociology version and we can parse it out if we need to. But I tell people that I study how people change identities, form identities in groups, and as they create groups, what that does for their identities. And so that's in-person places like coffee shops, and then that's also online spaces like this little corner of the internet. So something that I'm really seeing here is really a lot of change. So I really want to capture those changes that I see.
Do you find that the online spaces, I know this is a very broad categorical question, that they're substitutes or complements to sort of meet spaces, if you will?
Yeah, that's something I want to learn because there's really not a lot on that, especially like in COVID, right? Everybody kind of gave up whatever we were doing, and it was just kind of like, well, here you are online. And yeah, so I know a lot of people who were like Zoom churching before that, and that was not because they wanted to be Zoom churching. It was because, they didn't feel at home in their church community, and they were looking for other churches online, and it was just so much easier for them to do that online, where they wouldn't it wouldn't have to be a super public thing, where they would, be uncomfortable in different ways. It was just like something they could like, oh, we can try it out online first. And then COVID happened, and people sort of day to day, like religious lives went online, as well as their other, aspects of their life. Dude, I'm sorry, Sam. I already lost the thread. Am I answering your question?
No, you're doing a good job. Yeah, I mean, some people there were already doing it, and some people were brought online more with COVID. And yeah, I don't know. I guess I'd like to think that it's a complement to in-person communities, but at the same time, I do think there is. I mean, one of the things about being in a community is that it forces you to interact with people who aren't naturally your peers, especially religious communities. And I do sometimes wonder, the more I spend on line, like, am I just kind of getting lost in, well, so like around elections, there was this term bubbles that you'd hear, and it usually is like referring to politically partisan news sources. So, like, someone
Mhm.
only reads, I don't know, Huffington Post, or someone only reads Daily Wire, and they don't understand the perspective of other people. But, like, I don't know, what I had said in the live stream with Mark, for example, is like, I'm um, walking my dog, I'm out on my phone, I'm looking at it, and I see that the worldly, let's see, the gosh, I messed it up every time, but the weekly world, no, that's not the worldly week news on Friday morning nameless comes on.
Okay.
And okay, like, I see you, like, your face lights up too, like, oh yeah, that's like one of the funniest, like, things that's in this corner. And so I just sit there, and I have my dog on the leash, and she's not running around or anything, she's perfectly comfortable, but I'm just standing there, like, laughing at it, like like an idiot in my driveway. And my wife comes out, and she's like, what are you doing? And, like, I'm trying to think, like, how do I possibly explain this to her? Like, I mean, obviously she can see that I'm watching something and it's, like, entertaining and it's funny, but beyond
Mhm.
that, what do I say to her that would give some kind of encapsulation of what was going on in those videos in, like, 30 seconds or less?
Mhm.
And I don't know if you even can, but, and it's like, so in that sense, there's a way in which, if you're super online, I mean, you can be in a bubble, and I mean, you're not
Yeah.
getting, you're just around people who are exactly like you and thinking like you, and you're not expanding your perspective very often.
Hmm. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I can see that. I mean, I see that. I definitely see that.
Well, that's a problem in academia, isn't it? Right? I mean, you talk about technical language and having a hard job presenting that information to more common
Mhm. Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
audience.
And I
So,
think another part of this problem that you're noticing here is that, like, we spend more time at home now than ever before, right? We spend like 2 hours more at home per day than we did, even like 10 years ago. And so it's like we're actually not, like, what we do online is kind of what we do, or what we do in our offices
mm,
is what we do. Like, there's,
mm,
I think that's status, right? I'm gonna have to go
mm,
back and look at this time use data, but um it's like our worlds are being, like, I guess, shrunk, and a lot of times that's in really partisan ways. And so even we're in these kind of more
mm,
protected spaces, like this little corner, it's like, well, there's so many different little enclaves that we can go to.
mm.
Do we ever really? It sounds like you're saying, do we ever really encounter people who aren't exactly like us?
Well, yeah, well, I guess I'd say a few things. Maybe one is that I would hope, and maybe this is just me doing my TLC showing here,
Okay.
but that I would hope that it's more pro-social and a better experience than just being online and watching TikTok videos, or um, watching reality television for 3 hours at a time. I mean, and
Okay, called out. I mean, come on. Mom too. Super fan.
yeah, so
Love
yeah,
the
yeah.
green. Right, what were you saying?
No, you're fine. I was saying that anyone who's smart would never watch reality TV. I'm joking.
Okay.
Oh,
You
it's a
wouldn't be
joke.
the first to call me
Uh,
anything but
no,
smart.
okay, okay. No, no. I don't watch reality TV, but that often. But I do watch cult documentaries. That's a
Okay. Okay, tell
so.
me that's not just a
No,
sensational
no,
headline.
it's complete trash. It's complete intellectual junk food. Like The Vow on HBO. Oh, that was so good.
What was that one about? The Vow. I don't think I've was
The
that
Nexium. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
okay. My roommates and I, when I had roommates and I came out, we watched all the Nexium stuff. There was documentary after documentary. We watched them all.
Uh, yeah. Yeah, no, actually, and maybe I'll wrap up with this. Actually, kind of, so it's sort of like the Christian kind of. Well, I don't know. I don't want to say it's like Nexium because, I mean, I don't think there was actually any allegations of like sexual abuse or anything like that. But there's a church in Seattle called Mars Hill,
Okay.
and there was a very popular podcast that Christianity Today put out called "The Rise and Fall of Mars Hill." I probably wouldn't recommend listening to all of it. It did kind of get a bit repetitive, but the first 3 or 4 episodes, especially, were good. But like, if you're into like sort of, I don't know, like cult dynamics and um, group groups with like charismatic leaders and that kind of thing, you'd probably actually find that pretty fascinating. And I was yeah, looking for reactions, well, reaction podcasts or videos or things like that. And
Mhm.
I found PVKs, and that's how I started uh, watching and listening to things. And I mean, I have some, I mean, actually not that much Reform background, but I have more
Mhm.
Reform background than a lot of the people in TLC. I mean, it's surprising how few people seem to have basically any Reform background. Um,
Yeah.
uh, yeah, so I've had actually PCA and RCA churches, but 2 pastors who have who were Calvin graduates. So, yeah, so.
I see. I see. Well, you were officially the second person to recommend to me after Christian Baxter. You were the second person to recommend to me the podcast, "The Rise and Fall of Mars Hill," which that means do it goes up to the top of the list.
All right.
So
Well, yeah, so yeah, hopefully, yeah. If you need to detach yourself from Mark Driscoll's nonsense after a little while, don't feel bad. So actually, I don't think he's actually speaking that much in the podcast, but he's yeah, he's an interesting guy, but interesting in maybe not an entirely great way. So
yeah, I definitely read some transcripts of the podcast, but I need to actually sit with it to really
yeah.
get it. So
So, yeah, Mark Cosper, he does do the NPR voice thing where he speaks kind of slowly. So you probably could do it at like 1.3 if you're trying to get through it. So um, and you've got other stuff you're trying to get to.
okay, I usually don't listen to things at the gym. I like to be present with the people, but maybe it could be my gym material.
Okay. Yeah, so, all right. Yeah. Well, no, thank you for this conversation. That was a lot of fun. Yeah, hopefully you found it entertaining too. Or
Yes,
um,
I really appreciate this. Has been so much fun to just get to talk and not have to formally interview you. I'm sorry I did ask a lot of questions.
no, no, you're okay. And yeah, no, I appreciate that. I'll be honest. Sometimes I watch some of the live streams, like I see the Friday Morning Nameless or the Grail Country, and it's like 4 hours, and they don't timestamp anything, and it's
Mhm.
like I don't know. There's maybe like 15 different people who come and go, and it's like, oh man, this is just too much. I mean, maybe if I watch it live, it's kind of fun, but like going back and watching it later, it's just like, oh
Mhm.
god, like this is a mess. So I like the more focused and um, the more, I don't know, maybe topic kind of oriented
Yeah.
conversation. So
Okay, we should
yeah, I
talk
think
about
that's good.
the marriage crisis at some point because I was listening to you tell PBK about it, and I feel like you had some good insights. So I do want to hear
Oh,
you
thank you.
talk about that sometime.
Well,
Um,
yeah, I'll definitely yeah, keep that in mind for sure. So, um,
awesome. Well, thank you for having me on your podcast.
oh, thank you, Clara. So, and yeah, so yeah, good luck with your dissertation and all that. How far in are you? Like,
I'm too far in, Sam. I'm in over
too
my
far?
head. Um, I'm taking a pause of data collection until January. So
Okay.
after there's a few people who I've scheduled, but then in January I'm gonna be doing kind of a round two, and so I'll be doing some analysis and some thinking between, um, and then you could be on my January list.
All right. Well, you've got my email. Feel free to reach out. I am a tax accountant, so I sometimes am a little more busy in January, but
It'll be real
I'll try to
busy.
make time. So yeah. So
Okay, awesome. Well, this is
yeah.
fun, and yeah, I hope I hear from you again.
Yeah, no, and yeah, like I said, good luck with studies. No, it's funny. So I went to law school for a year. I am wrapping up, and
No, I need to
no,
hear this.
I think people who go to law school like to like kind of make it sound like it's the worst experience ever. Like, oh man, it's just that. It's like, well, can you imagine having something where it's like 6 years, like you're never like any classes, you're always doing independent research, you don't have any like real hard fast deadlines. And it's like when I talk to the people I know who do PhDs, it just seems like they're that they feel like they always got a lot going on. And it's no, I do admire it. It takes a lot of discipline and a lot of hard work. So
Labor of love over here. It's going great.
all right. Hopefully it's remains a labor of love. Thanks, Clara.
Thanks, Sam.